Kia ora everyone, thank you. Sorry, a couple minutes late for those online. We will go now to the allocation of the Sport and Recreation Regional Program Grant for financial years 2023, 24 and 25. Right, we have Sean and Nick and Pippa who are coming up. I think Sean is leading this, but with Pippa and Nick as very capable supporting acts. So kia ora everyone. We have had a drop-in on this, remember, so those who attended would have got had a lot of questions answered, so hopefully we don't have to repeat too much here if you have questions, but we will let Nick, you're going to lead off. Cool.
Ngā mihi kia koutou, ko Nick Harris-Takuingoa. I am here with Pippa Somerville, Manager Sport and Recreation, and Sean Watkins, Grant Portfolio Lead. I am Team Leader in Sport and Recreation. We are speaking directly to our report today, and we're here about the allocation of the Sport and Recreation Regional Program Grant. Community grants are a key tool for implementing Council's strategic vision. They're a direct and tangible way to support the aspirations of Auckland's communities. Pursuant to the community grants policy, Council runs a regional program of grants, one of which is Sport and Recreation, and this grant that we're here to discuss today is one of three in the Sport and Recreational Regional Grant Program. The purpose of the grant is really focused on participation. It's about achieving affordable and accessible options for people, particularly children and young people, to participate in physical activity, recreation and sport. My colleague Sean has been running this grant funding round, and I'm going to hand over to him to talk you through the recommendations. Thank you.
Do that. Thank you, Nick. Kia ora committee. So as Nick said, that the purpose of the grant is to provide operational funding for regional programs that enable children and young people to participate in sport and recreation activities. So this round was opened from the 19th of February to the 10th of March 2024, and it combined the budgets of FY24, which was $328,000, and FY25, which was $508,000, for a total of $836,000 from this round. Due to the long-term plan not being adopted yet, the FY25 budget won't be confirmed until July 1. Therefore, the recommendations have been split between FY24 and FY25. So a total of 8 organisations have been recommended to receive funding. So that means 6 programs from the FY24 budget, which total the full amount of $328,000. And then 7 programs from the FY25 budget, totaling the full amount of $508,000. So this includes 4 programs that will receive a 2-year grant, and 1 program that has been split between 2 years for budgetary logistical reasons, just so the numbers match up. So I'll take the report as read and am available for any questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Councillor Dalton said she'd like to move this, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Bartley, awesome. Thank you. I think the report is very clear and the drop-in was very clear. Are there any questions? Councillor Filipaina.
Kia ora hea mana. Tēnā koutou katoa to our team. Again, and I'll keep on asking this question, the feedback for those that are ineligible, that goes back to them in regards to saying, look, this is the reason why they're being declined. And do we offer any assistance to get them up to the level they should be, to at least be looked at?
Thank you, Filipaina, through the chair. So definitely, as we aim to support the applications that were considered ineligible, maybe just because of the way they've approached their application. So sometimes they applied for something that So if they applied specifically for like wages only, or like the introduction of a new role, that is considered ineligible. But if they were applying for the actual costs of the program and stuff that we could potentially report on and show the return on investment from our allocation, then that would be then eligible. So there are certain decline projects in here, programs in here that will get that support, and we'll work together with them to make a more robust and more essentially eligible application next round. Others have applied that were considered events, so we'll point them to the right direction of the events grant that council run, and also a different sort of variety of smaller scale grants for the small scale projects programs, because this is a regional program grant.
So we do help them.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, oh, no, that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I just wanted to make sure. So then it'll be good for them to say, oh, okay, this is where we made our mistake. We won't do that and everything else. One more part, through you, Chair, and that is, have you thought of having at least an online or the ability for those that cannot come into the drop-in session to have at least an online, or the ability to talk to you directly if they can't make the drop-in session?
So the drop-in session did have the online. So the drop-in session that we had a few weeks ago, we had a few councillors that were attended online, and we sent out the report beforehand. Is that what you meant, or do you mean a drop-in session with?
There have been some drop-in sessions. And Chair, this might be sort of at you and nothing around the staff, but there have been some drop-in sessions with the ability to go online, but some don't. I just want to try and get some consistency for those that can't go in there physically to go and drop on. That's all. And I think, Nick, it's not targeted with this. I just having the ability with any of the other grants that you maybe have oversight with, and that's all I wanted to sort of put on the table.
Through the chair, yeah. Thank you, councillor. Yes, agree that having an option to join online will be good practice, and we'll certainly do that with everything we do going forward, and can also confirm that the drop-in we did for this grant did have the online option as well. Thank you.
Can you take that on board with the other drop-in sessions that have the grants and events funding, just to give those that cannot come in, that may have an operation on their knee, something like that? Thank you.
Kia ora, councillor. Kia ora, councillor. I think we have requested all to be online. There was a drop-in of something the other day that wasn't. I'm not sure if it was to do with planning, environment, parks, that wasn't online. But
all events are next
yeah.
year.
Right, I think you can step back. There are no other. Oh, sorry. Okay. Just checking of the councillor Dalton and Bartley. We added the D from our discussions last time, but I haven't checked with either. I mean, we've discussed it, Councillor Dalton, but not Councillor Bartley. So happy to remove it if you're not happy with it, Councillor Bartley. But there has been a number of discussions over time that grants at this level should be delegated to staff. I'm sort of understand both sides of the argument, but we haven't. The discussion this time was that it would be against policy. So we would need to make a broader discussion on these. I'm happy for them to still come to committee, but we did have feedback last time, I think from Councillor Darby especially, but this would just allow advice to come back. Councillor Darby, this was just we were adding D around advice because I did ask if this this quantum in the future will be under 500,000, so whether it should be delegated to staff, but we don't have that mechanism yet. But I'm happy to remove it if Councillor Bartley is not happy to. It's the seconder.
No, I just want to make sure that the committee gets exposure of this grant and what we do with it and who we're benefiting out in the communities. Because if we don't have exposure to something, we're quite ignorant to it. And then when it comes to funding, LTP or annual plan, we seem to just want to get rid of it because we don't have that exposure to it. So that's my worry.
100%, and it was just the discussion because every time we bring these fantastic grants forward, often councillors say it's a waste of time or it shouldn't be coming to us. That's not my thought, but we can't change that at all unless we have advice to change or not change that. So if you're happy with the D, that's fine, but if you don't want it there, I'm happy for it to be removed as well. It was just in case it came up again.
Yeah, I'm happy to remove it.
Okay, cool.
I want them to still keep coming to this committee.
Cool. Thank you.
No, look, I know that the staff are here, so I know we're not into the debate, so I won't say anything, but no,
Actually, I don't know.
I'll wait till the debate.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you want to leave it there, leave it there.
No, I'm happy for it to be removed. It was just because it kept coming up every time and there is no mechanism for us to have the conversation because it's policy for it to come here. So it's gone. Thank you. Did you have a question, Councillor? No. Okay. Thank you all for the work. I know there's a mammoth amount of work that goes into this before it gets here. Appreciate that. And now if you could step away so we can debate about the item, not at you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dalton, did you want to say anything as the mover?
No, thank you. But thanks for the opportunity. Just glad to see that money still getting out the door to the organisations that need it. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Filipaina?
Chair, just want to acknowledge the staff and I think collectively across all that you have at your committee, you and Councillor Dalton, because I know how hard it is, and those that have been here from the beginning, we know how hard it is around the allocation, we know how hard it is around getting the panel together and then discussing that and then bringing it back to us. So I want to acknowledge the staff. And Chair, the reason I asked about the online one is that, as Councillor Bartley said, you know, having the ability to see what our community in our respective wards, I know that we're regional councillors, but having the ability to see what they've come, because we all get phone calls around the monies, whether it be 30,000, 120,000. So, Chair, just want to acknowledge the staff. Kia ora. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Filipaina, and yeah, just support the direction and thank you. And a bit of context too, Councillor. Councillor Dalton and I have asked for workshops on these things and been refused due to timing. So the drop-ins have been the end or the additional support for councillors and Haukura members. Right, all those in favour? Aye. Are there any opposed? Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 9, the Whenua Pai structure plan. Where is it? Warren. Kia ora. And just first of all, apologies from Chair Atkinson. They have a meeting today. She would have spoke in favour. She's spoke to Councillor Dalton and I, and so they're quite happy with the direction.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Warren aho. I'll give apologies for Erin, who's ill at the moment, so I'll talk through the report with you, and we have a PowerPoint, so I'll just go through that briefly and then answer any questions. So, some of you may recall, it's going back 8 years, that we approved a Whenua Pai structure plan in 2016, and the point of this work is to update that report to take account of some of the new circumstances and some of the new strategies which have been prepared since then. So we also will signal that we'll start our public engagement mid-year or later in mid-year, and then bring that document back here for final approval. So I guess this is in need of updating. It was the first structure plan that we completed, and it was before the unitary plan. So all of the decisions, recommendations and decisions which came out for the unitary plan came out after this. We didn't know what was going to be in at this stage. So it doesn't have any of the zoning ideas and so on from the unitary plan. It's so it's dated in a number of different ways. It still had a vision, and you can see the vision up there on the PowerPoint, and it's still intended to continue with this and it re-emphasise in many ways the vision and the objectives that you see there. Which will continue. So those are those 7 themes there, and they will they will permeate right through, and you see some of those: sustainable urban development, quality built urban development. We have moved quite a way since then, so it's a good one to update. Well connected, really around the commuting and the freight potential from an area which has 3 motorways intersecting just to the south of it. Probably the most unique feature has always been for Whenuapai, the airbase, and that clearly will continue, and that's a strong part of it, the assumptions going ahead. Provision of infrastructure is something that created some problems for us, or challenges, earlier in the 21-22, which caused us to withdraw the plan change that we had at the time in order to relook at some of the financing. The enhanced natural environment, in particular, this review of the structure plan will enable us to add in a number of flood-prone strategies which are not included and take any account of this. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more information now around climate change and on flooding. So we'll be able to take those into account, and of course the provision of quality open spaces. So there's the structure plan on screen, and that's where we got to. You see the grey area is the area of the Air Force Base, and then when you look to the south of that, you'll see quite a lot of proposed business land, and then areas of various residential densities around the Air Force Base and further to the north and to the west. We will review those areas, I think, and in particular look a bit more about the noise issues from the Air Force Base, and perhaps include more light industrial areas around the Air Force Base rather than residential. So since 2016, we've had some development, which nowadays is creating a bit more pressure for development, further development in the future. So we've had a couple of plan changes go through, one a light industrial, one Speeding Road, and one a recent decision, Brigham Creek Road, for residential areas. We've also got a lot of pressure around private plan changes coming through, and we have had quite a lot of pressure around fast-track consents. So whether or not the land is rezoned, we have pressure anyway in the area. We've also had some new developments on the infrastructure with Supporting Growth Alliance almost completing their notices of requirement project for state highway and arterial routes, and it's not entirely completed, but it certainly starts to set the network for the future of those roads within the Whenuapai area as part of that wider northwest area. We've also got Watercare looking to get approval for a new wastewater pump station, and we've had land purchased already for a park. And the last point on that slide, the development contributions work is continuing, and that work should be completed by the end of the year, and that will give us a good idea around the funding of infrastructure overall. And that work is being done with the Development Program Office, and it will really help to be able to assess the cost of the infrastructure in the future and how we might partner with developers to deal with that. So the next document that we've been looking at is the Future Development Strategy, which was finalised at the end of last year and replaces the Future Urban Land Supply. In that document, there is an area to be developed reasonably soon around business land, and that shows up as that orange colour in the map. For the rest of Whenuapai, there is the dates for development have been pushed out further, so they're around 2035 to 2045 or 50. That hasn't prevented development being applied for, and so while it's pushed out, and those aren't the date, or those are the dates that the FDS sets out. The FDS also sets out in Appendix 7 that you can allow for consideration of out-of-sequence proposals which provide bulk infrastructure, and we're intending that the development contributions work will help us deal with that. The other key point is that the area has become a joint priority between government and Crown agencies, and this means that we're getting further emphasis on development within this area, particularly housing. So it's particularly from MHUD and KO. But we've also got our own, we've also got an investment plan being developed by Auckland Unlimited for this area as well. So that's around looking at jobs. So there's a push for housing and a push for business development. And even with the later dates in the FDS, there are still infrastructure improvements being planned. So we really need to take those into account. So the, whoops. So the options in the report, which are set out there, are do nothing, which is not supported. We have looked at just partially updating the plan, but that one is still not supported because there is a considerable amount of pressure in the area, and we are better to look at the third option to fully update the area and create, if you like, a catchment-wide approach, an area-wide approach to planning in the future. And all of the documents that I've talked about look at Whenuapai as a broad area for funding as a whole. The third option, which we support, although we say in the report to you that it won't include a review of Red Hills North and Whenuapai West, we now think it's a better idea to include all of the future urban areas. So there's two smaller areas to the north and west that we would add in to make to complete the future urban area. And that's the presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Kia ora, Warren.
Chair.
Thank you for this, and for the councillors. At the beginning, I just acknowledged, I'm sure you've heard from her too, that Chair Atkinson would have liked to have been here, but was at a meeting, and she's supportive of the direction. So, Councillor Henderson.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, and fully support option 3, and thank you so much for your work. 2 questions, Chair. So, number 1, have you been engaging with the Upper Harbour Ecology Network? They've been doing some really great advocacy work on the blue-green spatial plan idea.
Yeah, thanks for the question. We did some years ago, as a part. So once we get approval to do some of this, to do this update, then we will be talking to a range of stakeholders, both environmental and business as well. So they're on the list.
Fantastic. And this is a bit of a cheeky one, Chair, but kind of noting the wider northwest catchment area here and the provision of infrastructure, will this touch on the lack of community facilities such as public swimming pools? And would this be the advocacy sort of lever for this?
We will be. We have been engaging with our community facilities group, and I guess it's what they come up with. It'll also take into account that nearby is Westgate, sorry, and Westgate may be a better location in the future, but we'll have to see how it pans out.
Thank you so much.
I'm not going to promise anything.
Fair enough, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Member Ashby, kia ora.
Kia ora, Warren. Thank you for the report. Yeah, very supportive of a broader catchment-based approach here. There's a lot of pressure, as you've said. Just a couple of questions from me. The first is, what will engagement with Ngāti Whātua and Te Kauramaki look like going forward? And then the second question is, picking up on the previous engagement in 2016, how are those values, I guess, can be incorporated into the structure plan? And I guess I raised that in specific reference to the RPS provision B652 subclause 7. So this is Māori cultural assessment and structure planning, plan change processes do all the following. So it's very directive. Identify mana whenua values associated with the landscape, identify sites and places appropriate for scheduling, and then reflecting mana whenua values. So it's a very directive, you shall do these things. So it's just a question in terms of, is that going to be in the work program when you do that engagement? Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. There's a number of questions in that. We thought it was very important to get approval from this committee before we started engagement with iwi, but that's definitely right near the top of the list. So you'll be hearing about some meetings coming up in the next few weeks. We have got, we were supplied last time around with a CVA from Kauramaki, and we'll clearly be going back with that and saying, is there anything you want to update about that? And if there's an ability there to look at how we might schedule some sites, we won't be doing that within the structure plan, but it could be something that we do in time for the unitary, for them to be added to the unitary plan schedule update. Is that all of it? Yep.
Thank you. Member Henare, online.
Oh no, I bailed. As you can see, I said, "Oh no, thanks."
Kia ora, sorry. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Just the airport, just sort of, is it life there? Is it a permanent fixture, or is it going to run? Leave the area eventually?
I'm a planner, and I'm not a. I can't foresee the future there. I know that we've all, from our past engagement with the NZDF, they have been very clear at all times that the Air Force Base is there to stay. We will be, and therefore, we will plan around that.
Thank you. I'm not a planner either, but just in layperson's terms, anyone looking at that would say, wow, we're going to put all this around an airport? It seems like a fundamental failure in the design concept. Thank you.
So clearly, as we do some of this planning and be well aware of the Air Force Base, the key issue there is the noise emissions, particularly for engine testing. And we had some pretty exhaustive work done on it last time around, and we'll review that and do some extra work on that as part of this. Aeroplanes have generally got quieter, so we'll use some new noise contours probably, but the idea will be probably to make sure that in the noisiest parts we make sure that we have light industry or some other uses rather than residential.
Thank you. I would just make the comment that I live on the north head of the Manukau Harbour, and depending on the wind condition, you would think that the jets at Mangere Airport were landing on your driveway. So I just, I'm only just a person, but that's, yeah, thank you.
Warren, maybe just a brief explanation that we do already have quite strict controls around the airbase, and that part of what we did through the FTS was to add that more industrial, so there wouldn't be as many residents. And it's not a commercial airport either, so it's not like a Mangere situation. But do you want to just maybe talk briefly about that it is quite a restricted space?
Yes, the Air Force Base itself does not have a lot of aircraft movements. It does have quite a lot of helicopter movements. We've exhaustively, last time, reviewed all of that and made sure that the amenity value of housing is not compromised by this. So we'll be doing the same again. The controls are pretty tight, and the Air Force personnel that we'll be working with are well aware of some of the concerns, and we will have some debates with them around just exactly how we can deal with contours. So that was covered in the hearing back in about 2021 when we were dealing with the plan change around there.
Not convinced, but thank you. And thank you for the hard work.
No worries. Councillor Walker.
Sure. Got a few questions. I'll just make a couple of quick observations, Mr. Chair. So my understanding is that the government of the day confirmed Whenuapai Air Force as a going concern for quite some time into the future at its last review, and has continued to invest money in it. I think it'll be there for a while. And I just make the observation, having a secondary airport in Auckland is not necessarily a bad thing. But to my questions, Warren, and thank you for the opportunity to have a chat the other day. So I'll just go through them pretty quickly. My understanding is that there's already been quite a significant amount of resource applied to Whenuapai, so the earlier structure planning work. So yes, there is some additional work, but there's a powerful base there. That's correct, isn't it?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, that's great. The other question just goes to transport. You've mentioned that as part of infrastructure. My view is that would also be including walking and cycling mobility within the area, so that's part of the structure planning process?
Yes, the local board have done quite a lot of work around walking and cycling, and we've discussed that with parks, and we will be looking to include walking and cycling as a significant mode of transport. Yep.
Okay, and then the other question just goes to identifying recreational requirements, particularly playing fields and the like, and conceivably that could feed into development contributions. That's part of what you're addressing?
Yes, yes. So the development contributions work assumes a number of parks in that area.
Okay, that's great. And the last question is just around urgency. There's some urgency around this because of the plan changes and the like, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And would you and Councillor Watson like to move and second this one?
Happy.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Darby.
Can we just go to the recommendations, please? I just want a clarification, because in the report, option 3 is not as option 3 in the presentation. So option 3 in the presentation is the current structure plan and taking into account Red Hills and Whenuapai West. Is that right, Warren?
Yes. Yes, so that's why I mentioned that. So I would, so I guess A could be an update to the structure plan and extension into 2 areas, if you...
Happy with that, Mr. Chair?
It's not the current, it's actually the current plus.
Yeah, that's correct.
So can we make that specific, because that's important?
So we could add something to the effect of including those 2 areas, which including Red Hills North and Whenuapai West.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Darby. I did ask Megan before, and she had said that that was the intention of the original resolution, but I think it is important to probably add.
All right. Yep.
Happy to move, Mr. Chair?
Yep, you're both there. Councillor Watson, you may have some questions.
Yeah. Just 2 questions and one brief comment when appropriate, Mr. Chair. Warren, you just want to really check or bolster up the 2 big concerns with the community out there is the airbase, as Councillor Turner was alluding to, and the other one is to do with the sort of potentially ad hoc, ad lib development that people have been concerned about. So just in respect of the whole protection of the flight operations and engine testing, now you'll recall that the Ron Mark back in 2019, he signed a certificate exempting the activity of engine testing at Whenuapai Air Base from the Resource Management Act, and that was a very unusual action to take, but essentially that the minister had the power to exempt activities for the purpose of national security, and that was after a Environment Court ruling in favour of Neil Construction to do with the whole business of engine testing, because engine testing is it's not just like people running their the engine in their speedboat for 5 minutes. It's a little bit more intrusive than that. So that still stands, Warren, that whole saga we went through there with Neil Housing and the, you know, the very timely and welcome intervention of Minister Marks? Right.
Yes, that still stands.
Okay, all right. So that's good. And the second bit just goes to this notion, and you captured it yourself in the options analysis, and the perception that has existed out in Whenuapai for some time now that that, you know, development was getting brought forward way quicker than infrastructure and everything that was prepared. Now, in the cons there, you've made the observation that conceivably the update of the structure plan may be perceived as the council wanting to bring forward development in Whenuapai in the areas identified in the FDS. You know, some of those areas, most of which they are beyond 2035 and 2050. In actual fact, this process is more likely to ensure that development's only going to occur when it's ready, isn't it? Isn't it going to, in reality, be the opposite of that?
It's trying to ensure that development will take place at the time that infrastructure funding is agreed. And that's the key part of the development contributions work to be done, which we didn't have in 2016.
Okay. All right. Mr. Chair, I'll make a comment at the appropriate time. Right.
Thank you. We have no more questions, so we'll get Warren to step back, and then either Councillor Watson or Walker, you decide who would like to speak, because you're the only speakers at this point. Cool. Councillor.
Just a very quick comment, Mr. Chair. This is long overdue. We have the resources to do it. It's urgent. There's huge community expectation, and it will enhance in generating a much higher level of environmental protection and better planning.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah. So thanks. Just a couple of comments from my point of view, and it really goes back to the original structure plan, which was adopted by the council in 2016. That outlines 7 themes, and out in Whenuapai, the main themes that have been causing concern, other than the obvious one of the provision of infrastructure or the lack of infrastructure, has been to do with the provision of open spaces and also the natural environment. So there's been it's an area where there are a lot of community groups who do a lot of work around about, you know, preserving the natural environment, and it is also an area where there is a massive infusion of population, where you have these huge developments that open up, like, you know, other parts of Auckland, but on a scale probably not matched by some of these other places, and a lot of the housing is this mixed housing, urban, and this THAB. So they're cramming them in like sardines, and what is really essential is hopefully what the structure plan delivers is a kind of a protection in terms of the environment, the blue-green spatial network, planting, waterways and parks, and also the provision of open space. So one of the big concerns of the people out here has been that these massive big developments are going in, and you've got these little postage stamps of provision of parks. Now the council has bought up, fortunately has been relatively fast-seeing and buying up land in advance, so there already has been some significant purchases made for parks, bigger parks, but I guess it's more on that neighbourhood level, that not just here but across Auckland, where that is provided for in advance. And communities should have a sense that this is going to happen, and the structure plan process will hopefully give that. I contrast a number of developments that used to come before the council but now go to the local boards, where we were keeping a reasonably close check on the provision of open space, whether it was in Takanini or Millward or wherever it happened to be, we had a bit of a line of sight of it. We don't get that so much now. So it's important, I think, that in this location anyway, that this process really deals to this concern in the community to do with open space provision and preserving and working with the natural environment. A little bit like happened with old councils like North Shore and Birkenhead, where if you go around parts of the shore, Glenfield, you have these lovely green strips that have been preserved that were on the rubbish land. There was no use to the developers, but they were preserved for the largely working class suburbs there. So we didn't have little playgrounds, but we had tracts of bush that the kids went and played in and fished and stuff, and they are now like gold. So that was a kind of visionary type of planning regime. I doubt if they had structure plans, but they were practical, and now the generations now, reap the benefit. And that's particularly the case when you look at this THAB and mixed housing urban development, which is very intense, is very concretised, if there's such a word, where the little postage stamps, there's not a lot of kicking balls around, and they kick the ball and end up on the road. So I'm appreciative of the people that have been working on this for a long time now on the council, and hopefully we get a really good outcome in Whenuapai, which should then perhaps be duplicated elsewhere if it isn't already done, in terms of those communities, massive big communities, essentially of tens of thousands of people that are going to be there for the next century. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, just a couple of things, thanks, Chair. And just want to talk with the words of Councillors Watson and Walker, the local councillors, a fantastic contribution. I support option 3 hugely. And as Councillor Walker said, I think much better environmental outcomes that will result from this, and so that's really good to see. Just a quick plug while I've got the mic. For the provision of aquatic services in the northwest area, where there's an absolutely dire need, I don't need to give you the full pitch, but I've been advancing a community-led approach idea where we actually sort of take it off the hands of council and capital, and we actually get local board members and community leaders together, setting up a vehicle, raising the money, doing the legwork, and working with that northwest community. And that's across borders, Henderson, Massey, Upper Harbour and Rodney as well. We're also seeking a fair share of development contributions is another key element to this, and actually you can fund pools through a reasonably recent law change through the DCs. So just want to flag our interest in that from a Waitakere perspective, if you don't mind, and I'd just be delighted to engage with that limb of the work as it pertains to the northwestern area. So kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Member Henare.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make the point, and that all the contributions this morning on this issue, and I just live across the water from Whenuapai, and I can hear the engine testing even on a bad day when the wind's going the other way. Not that it bothers me, because you get used to it, but with all of the issues facing that area, like infrastructure, like jamming people in to the smallest possible places, we still let it happen. And I'm not sure whether it's council's fault, whether it's government fault, or whatever, but it continues to happen. So, all of the councillors that have said something on this issue raise at least one of those issues in terms of infrastructure, in terms of population growth, blah, 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 blah. But we continue to let it happen. So I suppose, and it's not a question to Warren or anybody, but it's a question to ourselves, I suppose, is how come we allow it to happen? And it seems to me that there has been one strategy there that does work, and that's the buying of land. And I know we're not, we don't win $29 million every week so that we can afford it. But it seems to me that there's something missing in the debate, and that is that we allow it to happen, and then we have to figure out how we're going to pay for it. Because, you know, like the mayor has said and everybody else has said, there isn't a pot of gold that we can continually go and dip our sticky beaks in if we want to do something. I mean, like Councillor Henderson, and the issue of a swimming facility out west. And there's 200,000-300,000 people out this way, and we only got 1 or 2 places to swim, other than the beaches and maybe the odd lake or creek, and you wouldn't want to swim in those. So, you know, that's the comment that I make here. Thank you.
Kia ora, Member Henare, and just, a couple of brief comments for me, and it is a little bit to your comments, Member Henare. Although we don't have control over how many people come here or are born here, we do have some control, and this is us taking some of that lead. The issue is for these suburbs is that we often haven't been in control. So most of the area has been zoned through private plan changes. There were special housing areas under the last national government that all brought development forward far quicker than our plans had. The future development strategy that we all supported last year, led by Jacques and team and others, you know, will help us, and the work Warren's been doing a very long time trying to catch up with all those approvals that kind of come out of sequence. This is trying to bring that all back together and trying to bring that infrastructure into the right place and address the funding and financing. Will we and are we able to address it all? No. And we're finding out constantly around this committee that things come to us well before we thought they would, and we have to deal with them when we get there, and then go and beg governments or other parts of our community for that infrastructure funding to try and catch up. So our community does need housing. We shouldn't be pushing back, in my opinion, on that. We heard from groups this morning how important housing is. Our issue is how quickly and where can we catch up to make sure people's lives are better, because they're not stuck in traffic, they have a local park to play in, they have a library, a pool. So none of those things are easily addressed, but this structure plan will help this community at least start to feel like they are playing a part, and at least push developers, including government and council, into the right directions for that funding, so it's a little more coherent for our communities who end up on the bearing the brunt of bad decisions, but also feeling the welcoming nature of some of these homes and some of these communities where we are getting it right ahead of the curve. So thank you very much. I thought I was the last speaker, but I'll pass on to Councillor Lee, who would like to also speak. Kia ora. You have a comment, Councillor Lee, or no? Oh, sorry. All good. Okay. All those in favour? Any opposed? No. Thank you. Right. We will try. Normally I would break for lunch here, but I think my assumption is, and it might jinx it, the next 3 items should be fairly quick. So let's try and get them done. Then we'll go to lunch, and then we'll come to the confidential after lunch. If that's okay.
Move that recommendation. Or JB, do you want to move that? I'll second it.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't know yet.
I'm happy to second Councillor Darby, but I know that Councillor Bartley has some questions, and we'll have the presentation.
Come on, JP. Come on. Make some
Carl?
money.
Kia ora, Carl. We're not trying to rush you. We're happy to see the presentation. It does seem fairly straightforward, and our local boards are in favour of the direction. But if you could just go through the presentation, thank you.
Okay. Ngā mihi o te wā, kia koutou, ke eke pānu ko aho e mahi ana, he te team leader portfolio review, brackets acting, aho ko Carl me taku ingoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Oh, lovely, you got my slide up. Excellent. So really, my report is really just introducing a few pieces of housekeeping. It's the disposal of some properties inside the Unlock Panmure and Unlock Northcote HLPP areas for urban renewal. If I could have my next slide, please. Oh, there's a button. Oh well, we'll just have to take it as read. Thank you. So with Unlock Panmure, we have 3 properties sitting in what's called the Gateway West development area. Gateway West is right at the entrance to the main shopping street, so it's very prominent. As you can see from the slide on the picture on the right, the properties in green are covered in the original HLPP resolution. The properties in orange, 3 of them, they were still being held by AT for the Eastern Busway for road widening purposes, and so therefore couldn't be included in the original resolution in 2018. So they've now been released by AT, and so we are just bringing them forward for an approval so that we've observed due process. If I could just have the next slide, please. Thank you. So here we are, just aerial view and location map, and there are the properties, very much of their time. So if we go to the next slide. Thank you. So Northcote, Unlock Northcote, we just have 1 property here. It's a piece of tarmac. The original 2016 resolution included street addresses, but not legal descriptions. Legal descriptions were in an attachment to the report. This particular piece of tarmac at the time did not have a postal address and was not rateable. It has now been incorporated into 6 to 10 Killam Avenue, which is the building immediately to the, well, above it. If I could have the next slide, please, the final slide. Thank you. So there it is in all its glory. So we really just need to get approval to dispose of this as part of the 6 to 10 Killam Avenue, which will unlock the site, the whole site, for urban renewal. Thank you very much. I'm ready to take questions.
Good, thank you, Carl. I think Councillor Bartley first has a question, and then Member Ashby.
Thank you for this, thank you. My question is trying to secure the proceeds of sale from the properties in Panmure back to projects in Panmure as per the local board resolution, but as it's stated in these resolutions, it doesn't say that.
Yes, I think, sorry, it was, I think, taken as read that the proceeds of the sales would be reinvested back into those locations. So in the case of the Panmure properties, that HLPP, the resolution said that it is to be funded from a number of sources, one of which is through the sale of assets within the HLPP area. So the funds would go back to Panmure.
Okay, so if that could be amended or changed in that B, that would be great.
Through the chair. So I'm just looking at B. I wonder if we could add, and I'll work with Sandra and Lata, something like allocated program budget and contribute towards identified projects within these areas, or something like that, which I think will meet your needs. We'll put a draft up and see what you think. Yeah.
Panmure, because most of these are in Panmure. I don't want them going to Northcote.
Yes, that's right.
Well, we don't want any of our little driveway to go to Panmure.
Yeah. I didn't even know where Whenua is either. I thought this was the Whenua option.
Just kidding.
You guys just stay in Northcote.
Lovely. Yeah. Member Ashby.
Kia ora. My question's specific to Northcote. Well, it's actually probably both, but your report talks about engagement with mana whenua since in Northcote, I think 2016. Can you just explain like who that actually is? Because mana whenua could mean anyone. It's like saying we engage with Europeans. So who did you actually engage with there? And then the second question is, not that it looks like a particularly exciting piece of property at Northcote, but is your policy, is that going to notify and provide an offer to mana whenua? Iwi?
Well, I could not claim to be an expert on the various rohe of the various mana whenua within Auckland, but our mana whenua engagement team and the priority location director engages with all a list of 19 mana whenua entities within the Auckland region, specifically to those who have declared an interest in a particular area. And that engagement is ongoing.
Sorry, I'll just stop you there. I guess my point is, so you've engaged mana whenua. I know 2 iwi that hold mana there that have not been engaged. So when you use the word mana whenua, it hides or masks inadequate engagement is what I'm driving at. So it's good just for future if you actually come knowing who the partners are that you've actually engaged with, rather than just referring to them all as mana whenua, in the same way I might just refer to everyone in this room just as Pākehā or European. It's actually kind of polite to know that. Anyway, so, and the second question was just around the offering of, the policy around offering that to iwi.
Well, when the development site is prepared for marketing, iwi are invited to participate in the process and are encouraged to tender or to come up with development proposals.
And just to maybe clarify the slight nuance, Member Ashby, is that these are not like the normal disposals which go to the mana whenua of the rohi first. This is part of the unlock and transform, which I would assume or hope that, well, I believe in the Northcote side of things, that the process from the beginning has been through the relevant mana whenua entities. These properties are sort of like part of those original decisions but missed off. Is that because the overall Transform and Unlock program included working with either development of mana whenua, potentially also the purchase? But
yes, these properties were simply, were left off in the first case, in the case of Panmure, because they were still being held by AT. In the case of Northcote, it was a simple omission. Yes, mana whenua engagement over the HLPP, the Unlock Northcote and Unlock Panmure HLPPs, has been carried out and is ongoing.
Yeah. If in the future, Carl, if you could pass back to the team that it would be good if, no matter what the disposal is, has the list of, like it would normally do on a normal disposal, has the list of each individual iwi that are, it would be, yeah. Cool. Thank you. Right. Any other questions? Right. All those in. Oh, we'll just see the addition for. Is that okay, Councillor Bartley? In these respective areas, which we'll split the two. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Carl. All those in favour? Any opposed? Perfect. Status update is fairly clear. I'll move. Councillor Dalton second. Any questions? All those in favour? Any opposed? Summary of Planning, Environment and Parks Committee information, memos, workshops and briefings. Mover, Councillor Dalton. Seconder, Councillor Henderson. Any questions? All those in favour? Now, do we need a resolution to go into confidential? I'm happy to move. Councillor Ferry second. All those in favour? And thank you very much, everyone. And we will go for a half hour, so we'll be back at 20 to 2, which obviously needed a calculator for that for some reason. We'll see you in half an hour. Thank you.